All right, welcome back to Boring Reviews, and we definitely have the Dream Team here today, minus Chris. And we are looking at The Witcher, reviewing The Witcher Season 1. We've all watched all 8 episodes, and we are ready to talk about it right now. Here we go.
Boring Reviews!
The book was better.
All right, so The Witcher, there's many different ways we can go about it, but I would like this video not to be 30 minutes long.
Right.
So we're not going to give too much of a synopsis. If I tried, I would fail at it because, let me just start off right at the bat. Overall, I enjoyed The Witcher. Obviously, I did. This is right up my alley. I like this type of fantasy with magical and creatures and all different types, mages. I just think that's a cool name, mage.
Right.
But all that was great. I thought the acting was great. I thought Henry Cavill was put on a little bit of that scowl sometimes and that Batman voice a little bit. And I understand that's from the video games, that he's trying to be as real to the video game in the book as possible. But my biggest complaint with this movie, or this show, is that there's just so much going on. It could have been stretched out to 16 episodes, and maybe I would have been able to understand a lot more. I did not read the books. We did a reaction to the trailer a few months ago, and so I was excited to check it out. But there was times where I felt lost. There was times where I felt, okay, I understand what's going on. But there was definitely times that I felt lost. And just so you know, there is going to be spoilers in this review. It's been out for several weeks.
Right.
But overall, I enjoyed it. What did you guys think about it?
Jody, I'll defer to you first. Since you read the books, I'll defer to you. Or maybe I should go since you've got the most knowledge on it.
Okay, you go.
You know, here's the thing. I enjoyed it. I did. First and foremost, this is the first time I realized that Henry Cavill can act. Because the only other thing I've seen him in, come on, let's be honest, in Superman, he does not get, and his role as Superman, he does not get a lot of material, okay? And normally, you're like, can he or can't he act? And then
Well, he was good in Mission Impossible.
He was okay in Mission Impossible because I like bad guys, but you know, I'm like, man, he wasn't that over the top bad guy, okay?
But we don't need him to be.
I love over the top bad guys. You know how I am.
He's the villain.
I love it when
I
you're
don't
a
like
real
over the
villain.
top.
And then, did you see the other thing he was in, the A Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
No.
I hated that movie. It was horrible, and it had a good cast, and I thought it should have been better. It was him and Michael Fassbender, who plays Magneto.
No. It was the guy from the Facebook, the Social Network movie. The guy who was in The Lone Ranger. Armie Hammer.
Oh,
Armie Hammer.
yeah, it was him and Henry Cavill. So this is the first time I realized, okay, he can actually act, okay? So I like that. But like you, I was lost. If you're not a fan of the books or the video games, you are completely lost. And okay, maybe I'm just slow. Okay, I am slow. My wife would agree I'm slow. But it took me until like midway through episode 4 to realize that this was not being told linear, okay? This story is not, it's a spoiler alert, big spoiler. You know I was going to be the one to do it first. The story is not linear. So Geralt's story is basically in the past while what's happening is in the future. And you know, eventually by episode 8, everything meets at the same time. But I was so confused at times. And I agree. I think it was an interesting way to tell the story. Plus, the payoff at the end was super cool when you realize what happens. But for people that are not fans of the books, haven't read the books, or haven't played the video games, it's super confusing. So, what did you think, Jody?
Ooh, just did some, magic right there. Moving that camera back. Pretty amazing, huh? Learned that from the book. No, so I didn't play the video games. Surprise, not a video gamer.
Shocker.
Right? But I did read the book, The Wish, or The Last Wish. But I didn't read the other 2. So I just read the first one because I assumed season 1 would be about the first book.
Makes sense.
But it wasn't. I mean, some parts were, but a lot wasn't. So personally, for me,
Here it comes.
I enjoyed parts of it. I didn't like a lot of it. Because a lot of it did not match the book. And not that it needed to be perfect, not that it needed to perfectly match the book,
right.
But there were some parts in the book that I loved. And they didn't put anything about it in the show.
She was even talking about some battles and whatnot and, action scenes. And she is not that kind of person, so
Yes.
she was disappointed by some of that.
I know, I forget names, but at one point, Geralt fights this, vampire lady. But when I was reading the book, luckily, there is, an online dictionary for all of the descriptions of what these different creatures are, because I'm reading, I'm like, what is this? So I'm Googling it, and so I was able to read, but there's like different classifications of like certain vampires.
Right.
And there's like the top of the top lady who falls in love with this beast at this castle, and he's fighting her, and he's trying to save the beast who loves the vampire, and there's just all this going on that was actually really interesting. Nothing. None of it in there. Yeah, and then like even with Yennefer, I keep wanting to call her Jennifer, but Yennefer, and I know it's Yennefer from the book. She, even when she's trying to take in that, what is that genie guy in the bottle? They call him the djinn. When she's trying to get the djinn, I mean, it is a huge part in the book, and she's like trying to suck him in and fight him, and I feel like in the show it was just over in 5 minutes. She's trying to take him, he's entering through her body, and nowhere, and maybe I'm wrong, but nowhere in the book was she like naked trying to hold him in. Like she's got a lasso on him trying to like rein him in. Like picture him as like a big red cloud.
She was naked quite a bit in this show.
Yes, she was.
Holy cow.
Right? But I was disappointed in not being able to get to know some of the characters, that some of the major events were cut out. And then they gave away parts, obviously, of the second or third book, because in The Last Witch, you do not meet the granddaughter. You don't know anything about her.
Oh, wow.
You just meet the daughter. And again, okay, so the queen's daughter, when she is promised to the creature guy who he's cursed in the book, and so at midnight he changes back to his normal self. But when she's screaming, she has no power or control over her screaming. Like, things are just flying everywhere. The Witcher has to save the creature guy that she is truly in love with.
Right.
But in the film, they made it like this almost romantic scene where they're holding arms in the air. And, like, I wanted to see that destruction.
Chaos.
And that's not like me. Right. But I wanted to see that she didn't have control. They made it appear like she knew what she was doing. And you do get a sense at the end that she's pregnant. Geralt asks for what he has, but he doesn't know that he has.
What is it? Last surprise?
Yes. But in the show, he acts so like, oh, now I have to take care of this child.
But, so it's tough when you, jeez Louise, it's tough when you love a book or you enjoy a book and you're excited to see that on the thing. But I mean, we've realized by 2020 that Hollywood, whatever the studios is, they are not going to be able to do a good translation from the book into film. As a show as a whole, though, besides the disappointments of it not meeting up with the book, as a show, what did you think about it?
I liked it. I wish that the two things they gave away in the very beginning of the series that you don't find out to the very end or you don't even realize yet, I wish they hadn't given away. The granddaughter, and all you know about Yennefer is that you get the idea that she can't have kids and you don't know why. And Geralt wants so badly to help her. He is willing to give her all this stuff so that she can have it. And you don't know why. And they give it to you right away in the very first couple episodes. That when she has that surgery and thing. So I was like, oh, there it is. That's why. Where in the book, you kind of, you can make inferences and ideas, but you can't really draw a for sure conclusion. And I wish they didn't give that away right away.
Well, going with that line, you're talking about linear. Did you feel like their whole shtick, so to speak, of having it not be linear and having it be, oh, surprise, now they've all caught up at the end, did you feel that was worth it? Because I felt like the confusion it provided me was not worth it. And before I went and watching this, I watched a non-spoiler review by John Campea where he talked about there's something that goes on in the beginning that's confusing. It clears up at the end. And then my brother, who had watched it before I did, he did not give any spoilers away, but he did give that away. He says they're all at different time periods and then they come together. If I didn't know that going in, I would have been more lost than I was at times. Right. I don't feel like that whole plot device paid off.
For me, I enjoyed it because having not been a fan of the book, not that I wasn't a fan of the book, but I never read it or the video games, so I was confused. But at the end, I love the fact that because you were thinking to yourself, man, Geralt's he's this big famous Witcher, and I did like how they gave us a little bit of an explanation how these heroes become heroes and legendary. Where maybe what necessarily happened when he's fighting a monster didn't necessarily happen that way, but the guy that plays the music.
Oh, his friend, yes.
And
I can't remember his name, but I liked him because he was very similar in the book. In the book, he keeps getting Geralt in trouble because he's just going and talking and annoying. Right. But I loved him. I know he's annoying, but I love him.
I like some of his songs too.
And it helps explain how, again, history is told by the victors. So
Yeah.
you're going to tell the story the way that puts you in the best light. That's something that Gerald doesn't want to do, but he goes ahead and does it anyway and makes him famous. So that's pretty cool. But then you're thinking to yourself, if Gerald, I should say, is bound to this girl, how did he not go and save her when Nilfgaard attacks? Spoiler, Nilfgaard attacks.
But he was there.
But he was there, and we find that out at the end. So I thought that was a huge payoff, that he did live up to his responsibility. Mm-hmm. He was there, but it was the grandmother who ended up locking him up. At first, she tried to trick him and give him a different kid. Yes. Then she ended up locking him up, imprisoning him. But he was there all the time. So you like that, and so I thought that was a big payoff.
Do you feel it did pay off, then?
I thought it did pay off.
Because for
I
me,
like that too.
For me, it was confusing. It didn't start to pay off until episode, I think it was 8, where she's, or at the end of episode 7 maybe, where she's playing the game on the streets with the boys.
Right.
And she turns her head, which is when we first see her, I think in the first or second episode,
right.
Turns her head and Geralt was just there. To me, I'm like, okay, now I know where we're at. But I don't know, it was a lot. I mean, you're expecting a lot of your audience to survive. And again, these video games are extremely popular. The books are extremely popular, kind of two different audiences. Real quick, that one guy's name is Jaskier. I wouldn't have guessed that. The guy playing the music.
Right.
I'm kind of disappointed with the way they ended his story in this first season. You know, Gerald's in a bad mood, understandably so, and so he, goes off on Jaskier, and then he's like, okay, got his feelings hurt, and he just leaves. And we don't see him again for the rest of the season.
Right.
Now, obviously he's going to come back in season 2, but really that character gets that kind of send-off, like, adios, let's have a lame little, like, lover's quarrel almost, so that you can just get out of there. But let me focus on the things I did like. I liked a lot about this. I love the Yennefer storyline. I really did. I thought the actress, they did a great job making her not attractive at the beginning. Not to be rude, but she was not.
I promise you, at one point, I had to look up in the credits because it's not the same chick. There's no way that's the same
right?
chick. It was not.
I mean, it was the haircut, it was the makeup, but then when they switched her to how she, looks in real life and in the show, holy cow, what a transformation.
The only way you can tell is because of the eyes.
What was nice, too, is that in the book, in the Last Wish, you don't realize any of her transformation. They don't explain that. All Geralt tells you is that you can tell she wasn't pretty in the past. Right. And so I like that they did that transformation to kind of give that idea.
Okay.
And for me, characterization, that really cemented my appreciation of that character, knowing where she came from. You had said something to me in conversation before we recorded this where you felt like her character switched. Now, there was a lot of time from her transformation to where we see her for most of this, but you had said that you felt like her switch wasn't completely believable. Like, she was just so the other side from where she came from, right?
Yeah, in the book, she is very much confident and just kind of like she is in the film. So they did match that. And personally, I feel like if you were basically made fun of your entire life, your outcast, people are making fun of you, your dad is like, get rid of you, you're nothing to me, makes fun of you all the time, you would have such low self-esteem.
Right.
I mean, you would be broken. And to be beautiful, you would be excited, but you would not have the confidence that she has.
You'd still be broken inside.
You would second guess everything. You would be constantly searching for that praise and that you're so lovely, you're so wonderful. You would need that acceptance. But she is just 100%, I'm changed, I'm awesome, I'm owning this.
Right.
Like, where does that confidence of, even in the show, she's the last person to get all this magic. Everybody's doing it, and she can't figure it out, and she's trying, she's willing to try to commit suicide, and now she's like, hey, I'm going to the kingdom that I want, you're going to deal with it, I'm taking over. Like, that to me was just such a transformation. Again, she matches the character in the book. I'm not complaining that. I'm just saying, from going to being such extremes, where do you build all that confidence?
I agree. I feel like there's got to be some build up to that point. I can see eventually, the decades later, how she got to that, because that was her way of dealing with it, is kind of being rude and being a jerk to everyone else so they don't get a chance to hurt you.
Right.
Yeah.
But I agree. When she made the transformation and right away, I'm going to do this, and I'm super awesome, and I know I'm super hot now, that was a huge jump. But I love the whole storyline with Yennefer. I like the storyline that we had first with her little boyfriend where she had those meetups with. Wow. I like how they brought that back full circle at the end.
Except for he totally told on her, and she's still willing to go back. I would have written him off.
But it was a little wonky the way they did it, but she still was upset with him. That's why she left him eventually. I think it had something to do with that. But I liked how they brought him back later on, episode 6 or whatever it was, and how she's basically so vulnerable where she wants to be with him again. Right. And he says, this is what I've been waiting for my entire life, but you're not right for me. you're messed up, and I liked that decision he made.
Yeah.
I thought the actor did a great job.
Right.
There's a lot of things I liked. I liked Geralt. I mean, Henry Cavill. How can you not like this guy? This is not the best shape he's been on film.
Right.
And he was still in a shape that I'll never be in my life. I mean, he's still jacked.
Very few men will ever achieve
The
that.
hair, the awesome red eyes. I mean, he did a great job. He brought some serious validity to this show. And right now, it is the biggest show on Netflix this year. It's the biggest show on streaming, period. It was Mandalorian,
Right.
and then The Witcher came out. I saw his graph, and The Witcher way up here. I mean, it's going crazy worldwide.
I tell you what I really liked about this. And, whenever we watch movies, whenever there's plot holes in there, things that don't make sense. Like, for instance, I always watched the King Arthur movies, and he has Merlin. And I'm like, why would you sacrifice your entire army where you got this powerful wizard with
Right.
you, right? But here, the way they interpret magic is that magic comes at a cost. You
Yes.
can't just do all the magic you
I
want
liked
to.
that.
It's going to be either at a cost to you physically, or it's going to be at a cost to someone else. So I like the way they interpreted that, and I really like the fact that I've never seen a battle like this, where, there were two armies, but the mages were I was so captivated by that battle. And you see how even though they are wizards and they have powers, it's limited. And the more of
Yep.
it they use, they're going to tax themselves. And eventually they're going to end up dying because they're using their own life force there. So it gave an explanation, and it closed not just a plot hole, in my opinion, to this story, but to all stories where you're like, if you have a wizard who has magic, then why won't you just put the wizard, forget about sending out soldiers for the front line, Merlin, handle it. You know what I mean? I'm King Arthur, I'm not going down there. But now you know why. And I also like the fact that the court of mages uses the mages to control the kingdoms. Because I was always thinking, why aren't wizards more sinister? I'd want to be the boss. I'd want to be the king. I'd want to be in charge. And you find out that they are in charge, basically they're a pseudo head. They're running the kingdom through those kings, but of course they're
But they
influencing
still
their
have
choices.
their own police system and
Right.
their own way. I mean, even the lady, I can't remember her name, but the mage that turned evil and was with Nilfgaard and helping them out. She, the one that Yennefer took her spot.
Right.
I would have liked to have more backstory on her, to tell you the truth, from where she went, from where Yennefer took her spot to where we see her now, and she's all powerful. But she even mentions, they're not going to use the dark. We're going to use the dark. We're not going to be afraid of the consequences, and that's why we're going to win.
Right.
I like that. I am going to say, though, there was a few moments where I almost chuckled in that battle scene for some of the decisions that the creators of the show made. For example, the lady that can put her hands in the grass and create that fungus, those mushrooms that came up and explode on the people.
Right.
Why not be doing that the entire time?
Well,
Or at least show us that when she did it the first time, then she passes out and she's loses her life force for 6 hours or something.
Right.
Also, that one where they had the blue crystals that were exploding and they were shooting the arrows. They did that with a little battalion of 10 guys.
Right.
Can we just wait till there's at least 100 people out there or 1,000 people coming?
Right.
Because those things were exploding and catching everyone on fire. But they seriously shot 20 arrows for 10 guys in the woods. I thought that was really weird.
Right.
It was cool. All those elements were cool. I just thought that was weird. I did like how Yennefer was a boss at the end and she used all her powers and she just put those people on fire.
I liked where
Spoilers, sorry.
you see that box and those worms crawling out,
Oh.
and you wonder what's going on. Now I assumed that they were gonna go attack the lead witch lady. Forgive me because I'm awful at remembering names. Because she was on the floor
Right.
choking or whatever. I thought they were gonna attack
Jessie
her,
or something like
but
that.
then when you see the one mage and how she looks at those boys and they look and I'm like, okay, something's going on.
Right.
She's bad. And then you see the little worm in their ear. So
they're controlling them, right,
so
right.
I liked that effect.
That
My
was cool.
question is, how did they get there? Because they had 100 worms and they're crawling out,
Right.
but only 3 people were affected. Is this going to hit us later on?
I got the impression
happen.
other people were affected. We just got to see that small part of it because
Yeah.
they were winning the battle up until that point, and then all of a sudden the tides really, really changed. So it was sabotage from within, and I think that's what happened.
But that's a great metaphor almost for my problem with the battle scene. Was it was all done on a small scale. We didn't get it, and I'm not saying spend billions of dollars to get this big scale battle. We've seen it done so many times. But like you're saying, 3 people were affected by the worms. I'm saying 10 guys were killed by the crystals. I would like to see it a little more global scale to see what that battle really was. We know that Nilfgaard had a lot more soldiers than the mages group had, but I just would have, and the villagers there, I would have liked to see a little more there. But still, all in all, I was like a kid in the candy store watching this show, and these crazy names I'd never heard of before, and this magic that they were doing, and they did a fantastic job of world building. They really did, of setting the stage, different places. We see the people in the gardens and the trees where you gotta drink the water.
Yeah.
I love the story with the granddaughter, Siri or whatever her name was. I thought that was. I even liked some of the bad people in this show, like the grandmother. I thought she was a little over the top, but not too much. But I liked how she was this warrior queen, where that was just where she found her place. She eventually found her husband as another warrior. I liked the mistakes that she made because I can see those mistakes that she made. I liked how she tried to pull a fast one. And I love at the end, huge spoiler here, I love at the end, and we've mentioned it before, how Syria and Geralt, they come together and they keep repeating that phrase that, you know, what is it, like Destiny will have us meet when it's ready to, or something like that.
You always meet when your fates are bound together.
I love how they use fate and destiny as a huge part, almost like a character in this show.
Right.
I like that as a wrap up because that girl, the lady who was trying to take the granddaughter the entire time, I was like, oh, she's bad. She's always where she needs to be. She's not mad that she stole her horse. She's just like, come. And then at the end, where she's like, I always wanted a daughter. I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to be obsessed with this girl, not let this girl leave. And I thought when she started leaving to go into the forest, I was like, she's going to attack you. She's going to kill you. But then when she met Geralt, and to realize that.
And the merchant showed up, we were like, oh.
And the merchant was her husband.
We had no idea that was coming.
I thought he was awesome the entire time. He's willing to give these people some type of burial, risking his life all by himself. He's taking Geralt back home, trying to take care of him. And then to meet Geralt's mom. Right. Because you get in the story about how he says that, you know, there's not a lot of witchers. They're taken when they're young. They're transformed, made into this. So you realize he doesn't grow up with his family. Right. But the entire time you're wondering, like, how does that happen? And so to kind of see a little bit of that happen
now,
is interesting.
We don't get a lot of that, and I'm assuming we're going to get that in season 2 or 3. But why aren't there a lot of witchers? Because you do get the sense in the show that he's one of the last witchers. He's famous. But if witchers are so awesome, and it's not like they're born, it's a process. And they do mention how, you know, only 3 out of 10 children survive the process. But still, if I'm a king and in my kingdom, I've got hundreds of subjects, I don't care how many I'm going to sacrifice. If 3 out of 10, that's pretty good odds. Those are baseball odds. I'm betting 300. I'm going to get me an army of witchers.
I think it's awful. I wouldn't even risk it.
I'm going to get me an army of witchers.
But doesn't he mention it in one of the episodes? He says there's not too many witchers going around anymore because of this, and I can't remember what he said.
I can't remember. I know they talk about it in the book.
But I do think he does address it in the show, maybe very quickly. But I thought he had mentioned, like, you know, because that's kind of like why he's okay with the law of surprise, right? Because he's thinking in himself, he's not thinking, oh, I want a little kid to be my future wife. I think he's thinking, I want to make this person into a witcher, correct?
Right, because we're a dying breed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, and I want to say, again, it was a while, because I read this book like a few months ago when we did
a
long time ago. I forget quickly because I read a lot. But I want to say that he had said that they're kind of looked down upon too.
Yes.
And people are not super concerned with the creatures anymore. They're concerned with the ones that are going to come and attack and kill them all.
Right.
But other than that, if they leave themselves alone, you know, if they're out, and I think creatures are kind of dying off, and there's a lot I can't remember. But I also know that, like, at the very beginning, when you meet that wizard in his tower and stuff, there's this whole thing in the book about how the wizards were changing princesses and trying to, like, do things, and they realize that they're given these magical powers where they're, like, unbeatable, and so now they're going back and trying to kill them all, and they're doing autopsies and stuff. And so I think a lot of these magical people are starting to kind of be people. The regular people are kind of like weary of them. Like, what are you doing? Right.
Well, I think that was also the problem with Geralt's. The queen. She didn't want mages there in her kingdom because she had something against. Well, not that she had something against them, like you said. They have their own agenda, and I think she was able to see that the mages manipulate other kingdoms, and she's like, we don't need their help. So, you're right. The witchers are looked down upon in the society. The elves, we didn't touch on the elves. The elves were almost exterminated by the regular people.
The whole dragon thing, that was a kind of a weird episode, I thought, because they just brought this dragon guy and they took him out, and I thought, okay, they're gonna use dragon guy at the last battle scene, but
he's not in the book at all. But there's a huge part to the elves in the book, and then there's like this prophetess that we never meet in this series of The Witcher that actually is the one who saves Geralt from the elves. They were gonna kill him. They were done, and I wish they had dug a little bit more in that, because you really do in the book feel very sorry for these elves.
I did like how The Witcher was not unstoppable. He was vulnerable. He had his weaknesses. He was still a man. He had his abilities and whatever and his experience. But I did like how he was not unstoppable. And if you think about it, he doesn't show up at all in that final battle and help out whatsoever.
No.
Because he's injured. And I thought that was an interesting, but that was a good move. Because like you said, it was about the mages against the mages, showing how powerful they are.
Mages against like the basically one mage. I mean, she had a couple, but they killed themselves shooting their fireballs.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I would have said no, thank you.
Anyway, should we give this a score?
Let's give it a grade.
Score. I tell you what, and people are gonna kill me. I'm gonna go first. I enjoyed this. Maybe it's because recency bias, but I was so mad at the last season of Game of Thrones. What they did with it, I was like, ah! You know what? Not gonna do it. But I think that this show, in my opinion,
Don't say it.
especially because of the fan, I'm gonna say it. It's gonna be better. At least the first season is better than Game of Thrones. I love this show. I'm giving it an A.
Okay, so let me just say real quick. I'm never going to judge another person's grade, but this guy is definitely what have you done for me lately. So, my grade, I enjoyed this show. It seemed like a film. I enjoyed a lot of it, but being confused, maybe I'm just not smart enough. I have no idea. I don't think that you have to be a huge fan of the previous properties to have a chance to understand what was going on. Luckily, I had her who had read the first book, and so I'm going to give this a solid B. Did you give it a grade? I'm going to give it a solid B.
I gave it an A.
Okay.
And you know what I like about what they did, and I think it's smart, since they're telling the story in a way that's non-linear, we don't know. They can go back and revisit those things that Jody mentioned that weren't in that. And I think it's an interesting way of telling it, because then you can take from different source material at different points in time when you need to as a showrunner. You're not really trapped into, that's what happened with Game of Thrones. It was awesome until they ran out of source material, and now that last season you can tell it wasn't planned. The last book wasn't written because they completely butchered it. Here, I'm gonna take my time and I'm gonna take storylines from the very beginning, from the end, and intertwine them. So if I'm not telling it linear, I'm not really pigeonholing myself to eventually having to stick to this storyline, and that's what I like what they did.
I've never seen Game of Thrones, so I can't, I have no idea.
You'd be so upset.
Neither one of us have seen it.
You'd be so upset at what they did season 8. Oh.
So we have no idea. But for me, coming from the books, I am not a science fiction person. I am not a violence person. Everybody knows that. I know the comments come rolling in about, violence, it's a horror movie. I get it. But I actually really enjoyed the book. I love the way the book was. I love the ending. I enjoyed it. So I would probably give the show a B with Nick, because I did like it. I think it was well put together. But there were some parts that I really enjoyed in the book that we missed. I mean, almost the entire time Geralt is injured in the book from fighting off this, I forget what it was called, but do you remember when he's fighting in that castle, that princess who was a beast and she lived in the tomb? He gets injured from that. And so the whole rest of the book is just him going back through these memories in the past and remembering things and then coming back and talking. And I really enjoyed a lot that we missed out on. And I really hope that in the next season they come back, like you had said, and they dip back in and we get more of these stories. I wouldn't mind reading the second or third book probably over the summer. So I'm going to give it a B, because I really like some characters that they just didn't even introduce, and I was really bummed about that.
Okay.
All right, well, there you have it. That's our review for The Witcher Season 1. It's a long review. 30 minutes is pretty close to that. But this is 8 episodes, and this is a big-time show right now, so we definitely wanted to give it as much attention as we could. Here at Boring Reviews, we do reactions, we do all types of stuff. If you like what you see here, go ahead and check out some other content that we have, whether it's Hollywood-esque, British film, or even Indian film. We have all types of stuff on there. Consider subscribing and liking, and look forward to some future videos that we have. We drop about one a day. But until next time.
I think we should talk about the You next. The TV series on Netflix, You. Psycho Killer. Anyway.
Until next time.
Bye.